Hello again, everyone. My name is Candace Julian, Capital Budget Director at Brooklyn Borough Hall. Thank you all for joining today's Capital Budget Info session for schools. I'm going to provide an overview of the capital funding process while providing a little insight into some funding considerations we put into reviewing your application with the Borough President. This meeting will be recorded and posted on on Borough Hall's digital platforms for future reference. And while I enjoy face-to-face engagement, feel free to turn your device cameras off and remain unmuted until the Q&A portion of today's session. We are joined on this snowy day by the School Construction Authority, the managing agency for all school capital projects, who will provide some additional context as to what happens after your school receives a capital allocation from Borough President Adams. We're also joined by Elizabeth Cruz from the Participatory Budgeting Project, along with representatives from A+ STEM Labs, Sunworks, and Tech, who will also provide some insights on their programs and products for schools to consider as you prepare your fiscal year 2022 capital application. There will be a wealth of information shared today, and I encourage you all to take notes, ask as many questions as possible, and of course, you can always reach out to me to schedule some time to have a follow-up meeting. Borough presidents are provided with an annual allocation of capital funding to appropriate to eligible projects. Borough President Adams utilizes these funds to support infrastructure improvements across the borough. These allotments of capital funding is utilized in a diverse manner, funding schools, affordable housing projects, cultural organizations, parks, hospitals, library, and many more capital possibilities. Education has been a top priority for Borough President Adams. One of his largest priorities with schools have been bridging the digital divide in schools, and as he wants our students to have access to the newest Comptroller Directive 10 approved technology, of course. Every year, he allocates roughly 50% of his capital to education. Last year, we received 409 school applications. 86 were funded, totaling $18.1 million. We had 142 nonprofit applications, and 34 were funded at around $15 million. Historically, over the Borough President's 7 years in office, his capital portfolio has totaled $375 million, and he's allocated 44% of that portfolio to education, totaling around $166 million to education. So you can see the numbers support that education is definitely a top priority for Borough President Adams. Schools who have not historically received a capital award from Borough Hall are more likely to receive an award, as equitable distribution is another one of those priorities when allocating funds to ensure equitable distribution is achieved to build a stronger borough. When considering your fiscal year 2022 capital project, please keep these things in mind, these guidelines. All projects must meet a minimum cost requirement of $50,000. So the minimum amount we can allocate to a school is $50,000. Capital construction projects must provide a permanent enhancement to the facility. All equipment must have a lifespan of 3 years, and technology grants must be used to purchase desktop, laptops, smart boards, iPads, laptop computers. Examples of previously funded capital grants include science labs, improvements to auditoriums and gyms, mobile science labs, technology equipment, and upgrading libraries. Unfortunately, capital funding cannot fund after-school programs, library books, loose classroom furniture, photocopiers or toner, and window air conditioning units. So how does this all play out? Schools should begin the capital process by developing a project scope. Specifically, schools need to know what they'll be asking the Borough President to fund. That scope is going to most likely be used in your capital application. And of course, you want to ensure that what you have in mind can be funded for capital. So once you have that infrastructure project in mind, the school principal should reach out to the school construction authority, who's with us today, and will give you, again, a bit more insight on how to navigate capital to get an estimate. After the school has obtained a general quote or estimate from SCA, you would fill out the Borough President's online capital application, which will be posted on the Borough Hall website, brooklyn-usa.org. The online application is generally available the first week of January and closes the last week of February. Our capital application reflects the Office of Management and Budget's application timeline. So we're just waiting for those final announcements, but the application will most likely be open the first week of January. I will, of course, be sending many more notifications out when it's time to look out for that. Once a capital application is submitted, I may reach out to the applicant to clarify or obtain additional information. If the capital application is satisfactory, you may not hear from me until budget decisions are released when the city budget passes by the end of June. It's extremely helpful for schools to submit an application for each capital project they're submitting, and note the importance of that project in the project description. Be very specific in your narrative as to how, if you are pursuing multiple capital projects, because this is going to help, ensure that each project is fully funded and to be impactful. Now, let's say a school is requesting $500,000 from the Borough President for laptops, STEM carts, and bathroom upgrades. I'm going to be looking at that application, wondering first, what was the quote they got from SCA for each item? And what is the school's priority should the Borough President not be able to fund that full $500,000 award? That's where, again, it's really helpful if the school submits separate applications, or if they submit one application, they note, the bathroom upgrades are the priority, and the quote from SCA was $400,000. Laptops are the second priority. The quote I received from SCA is that amount. Very helpful. I do reach out to schools to, get clarity on what's going on with the application and where the school is. But, in the worst case scenario, if the information came back after I already submitted budget documents, we could always update it, but we want to make this process as smooth as possible. Award notifications are generally mailed out to applicants within a month of the city budget being passed. So if your school did receive an award from Borough President Adams, you're going to receive that award letter from me via email late July, early August. We also post the awards on the Borough President's website. Again, that's brooklyn-usa.org. Within months of the budget being passed, SCA will issue a posting in the principal's weekly newsletter, directing principals on how they should proceed to access any capital funding that was awarded. So to recap, the principal should reach out to SCA to discuss the project they're interested in funding and obtain a quote. The principal then submits an online application to the Borough President to fund that project. If your project is awarded, you will receive an award letter from the Office of the Brooklyn Borough President, July or August, and then SCA makes that posting in the principal's weekly newsletter in the late fall. And to know Borough President Adams is to know that he's willing to test new concepts and reimagine longstanding practices. For 2 fiscal cycles, Borough Hall has partnered with the Participatory Budgeting Project, a leading nonprofit facilitator of participatory budgeting. We work with campus schools to conduct student-led voting for capital projects that the PP intern funds. And as a matter of fact, why don't I have the expert tell you a bit more about the program? And I'd like to introduce you all to Elizabeth Cruz, the Director of Democracy Beyond Elections at Participatory Budgeting Project. Elizabeth?
Hi, everyone. As Candace said, I am Elizabeth Cruz. I'm with the Participatory Budgeting Project, and I am going to share my screen real quick. Great. So yeah, I'm with the Participatory Budgeting Project. We advocate for and support participatory budgeting processes and participatory democracy processes across the United States and Canada. What is participatory budgeting? It's a democratic process in which community members decide directly how to spend part of a public budget. In this case, it's students. So students are actually leading the community, the decision making and on how to spend part of the budget. But also with this process, we also do participatory policy making. So this process that we've been doing with the Brooklyn Borough Hall for the past couple of years has been the largest participatory budgeting process in schools in the United States. And this participatory policy making piece has been the first of its kind in the United States, where students get to directly decide and vote on and propose policy changes. So how does it work? Students come together, they design the process. That means they get to decide who gets to vote, how votes happen. They get to decide, if it's going to be online, if it's going to be in person, how project ideas are going to be submitted. So the next phase is to brainstorm ideas. So they will go out and ask their fellow students what ideas they want to see, what capital projects they want to see, what policy proposals. Then they take those ideas, they develop them into proposals, they vet them, they run it through their principals and their administrator, and then it goes up to SCA, and then they cast their votes, and then the winning projects are funded. So for Safe Schools for the past couple of years, we call this the Safe and Supportive Schools process, because the projects are really based around ideas that will make their school more safe and supportive. So so far we've worked with 4 school campuses. This has to be a campus-wide project. So all of the campuses that we worked with have been co-located schools. They've received $1.5 million spread out over 2 years to allocate on capital projects that would make their school more safe and supportive. And in addition to this, to participate, all school campuses are required to contribute $10,000 for expense funds to be allocated through PB. And then all school campuses have to allow for the policy proposal piece. It doesn't mean that they don't get a chance to vet and provide feedback on those policy proposals, but they do have to agree to those. Some winning projects for the capital and expense funds. We had filtered water fountains, school bathroom renovations, basketball hoops. One thing that we've kind of seen across the board for the past 2 years is students in these co-located campuses really want opportunities to come together. So whether that's through movie nights, career days, campus-wide events, campus-wide trips. One campus wanted to do a carnival, a summer carnival. So they come up with these really amazing things that we as adults might not have necessarily thought of. Policy changes, again, they really wanted campus-wide after-school programs. This came from one of the schools that was brainstorming ideas for the expense funding, and one of the students said, well, we really need a theater program, and another one said, well, we really want an arts program. But the other schools in the campus actually had these programs, so they thought it would be great if they could just make all of this after-school programs opened up to all of the students. But in order to do that, they had to do another policy change, and they wanted to change the start and end time. So all the students start and end at the same time to have equal access to those after-school programs. Another thing they wanted to do was create a school safety council with students, teachers, administrators, and their school safety officers, so that there could be a regular meeting for accountability to talk through any school safety issues that are happening. And then another school wanted to create an internship program so that students would have access to be able to get school credit for real world experience. Students that have participated have really loved this program. They just feel like there's so many things that they don't have a say in. They don't get to vote, they don't get to participate, but they love doing PB and the participatory policymaking because they get to decide and they get to take the choice out of people's hands who don't know how this is going to have an impact on their lives. So this is some real problem-based learning, project-based learning in action that we get to do with the students every year. So we're super excited to continue doing this. That's it. Again, I'm Elizabeth Cruz, elizabeth@participatory-budgeting.org. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions that you have, and I'll be on later for the Q&A also.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Sure.
So we've discussed how to submit your application, how to be very specific. I'd now like to turn the meeting over to the School Construction Authority, my colleague Bennett Baruch, who will give some additional factors for you to consider as you pursue your city capital application. Bennett.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bennett Baruch. I'm here with my colleagues, Brian McGinn and Bianca Almadina, who some of you are meeting via chat right now, are joining us. We make up the Reso A team at the School Construction Authority. Just gonna mess with my view here. There we go. I know a lot of folks are interested or obviously want to know about their FY20 fiscal year 20 allocations, fiscal year 21 allocations. As you imagine, we are in an unprecedented time. Your fiscal year 20 projects, the funding was released by OMB in February of this past year. In normal situations, the funding is released maybe December, maybe January at the latest. So the funding was CP'd by the Office of Management and Budget to the SEA in February of 2020. And then COVID hit in March, and all projects across the city were paused. So, nothing happened in regards to those projects for about 6 or 7 months. The priority projects were restarted, some of them on a trickle, and we've been advocating along with the borough presidents and other elected officials to get these projects restarted. So I just wanted to sort of give that view prior to starting our presentation. I'm going to share my screen now. And also everyone will be receiving this presentation from Candace afterwards. Okay. How do I share? There we go. Okay. Do you guys see me? Thumbs up? Yes?
We see you.
Full screen. Okay, so I'm not going to read all the words on every slide. You will be receiving these slides. I'm going to kind of flip through it and talk a little bit about some of these overarching themes. And like Candace said, we will be available after this presentation and during this presentation for any Q&A. Okay, the School Construction Authority, as Candace touched upon, we manage all of the Department of Education's buildings, about 1,800 of them, making sure that they're watertight, that the students can go to the schools in a safe environment. What is the Reso A program? Resolution A is discretionary capital funding that the city council members and borough presidents allocate at their discretion. So some of you have received this funding before, some of you have not. As Candace touched upon, depending on where you are, obviously that's going to impact whether or not you receive funding, but it's based on their discretion. As Elizabeth eloquently spoke about, participatory budgeting is a subset of the larger Reso A pot that elected officials allocate. These are some typical Reso A projects. As Candace touched upon, some of the eligibility requirements, all grants must be a minimum of $50,000. They have to enhance the facility. OMB makes it a requisite that these projects and equipment must have a minimum of 5 years. Tech grants now include things like iPads and Chromebooks and printers. These are things that the borough president and other electeds have long advocated for. And finally, about a year or two ago, OMB and the comptroller got together and changed Directive 10 for that. Some of these projects, here are projects that are not eligible. I won't have to go through all of them, but like Tanda said, staffing and after-school programs are not. Not with this funding, just to be clear. Council members have discretionary funding that's called expense, and they can allocate towards staffing and after-school programs. About Reso, a project budget, a lot of words on this page. Pretty much goes into a lot of the things we just talked about. But I think I want to touch upon these projects in our phasing, which includes a scope, design, and then ultimately bidding and construction. So hypothetically, if a school receives funding, like Candace said, they will be notified July 1st of that beginning fiscal year of the award. Sometime over the summer, the SCA, will be reaching out to certain schools to identify what the priorities are for certain construction projects and notifying, obviously, the schools of the award. But ultimately, schools will be notified from the SCA of the project when we receive the funding from the Office of Management and Budget. And like I mentioned earlier, we tend to receive the funding, which is known as a CP, sometime in December or January of any given year. Last year was not normal. We received our funding in February, and that put us behind the 8 ball. COVID hit, and then that just changed the trajectory immediately. And now we just don't know when the fiscal year 21 funding will be coming our way. It's sort of up in the air. So like I said, once you get the funding, we will be reaching out to you once we receive it to begin the scope phase. And the scope phase is we'll send out a team of architects and engineers to meet with the school leadership to discuss the priorities of the project and seeing whether or not it's feasible by developing a report. The scope report, which comes out of the scope meeting, includes some of the overarching themes of your project, and I liken it to a 30,000-foot view of your project. And in that scope report is a scope estimate, and we will look at that scope estimate and determine whether or not if it fits within the budget that was allocated by the borough president or council member. If the project is not, if the project budget is less than what the cost estimate is, the project would be stalled. We will refer the project to the legislator and ask them to fund us, to give us more funding for the project. Well, of course, we will ask along with the school. And if the project ultimately does fall within the cost, if the cost estimate does fall within the budget, the project proceeds to the design phase. In the design phase, we develop a report. Again, this is a much more granular look at the project. We go down to about a 10,000-foot view, and we get into the nuts and bolts of the project. And in that design, we develop another report. And that design report contains cost estimate. And it's another time that we can check against the estimate to the budget and make sure that the budget fits, the cost estimate fits within the budget. Once the design phase is finished and everything lines up with the budget, the project can be put out to bid. The bids come in, take some time. We will select the 3 lowest bids and ultimately award the lowest bidder for the project. I will continue on. This goes into some of the things that we just touched upon, these time frames. Here's a average cost and time frame slide. Again, some of these numbers are pretty big. Don't want to scare folks, but we do want to stress the importance of reaching out to the School Construction Authority, my colleagues, Brian, Bianca, and myself, for any of these, for a cost estimate. We do, like I said, ask you to reach out to us for construction projects and give you an estimate. We do ask that you prioritize, and that's what Candace touched upon. And we do ask that you look on things like FAMIS or Shop DOE for technology pricing. We ask that you do not ask anyone else for an estimate because they tend to overlook some of the things that we don't. Again, here's our phasing. It's a little bit about co-located schools. When there's a shared space, like an auditorium or a gymnasium, cafeteria, we're going to always ask that all principals are meeting, are communicating with each other, and are advocating for the same priorities. That way, people can make sure that there's no friction and that everyone is on the same page. Here are some of the projects that have been awarded by the Borough President and other council members. Hey, and there's our contact information. So like I said, we're going to be here for a Q&A, a part of this presentation, but you will also have our contact information. And we like to say we have an open office. You guys could always reach out, contact us, email us, give us a call, and we'll discuss your projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bennett. Before we move into the vendor presentations, I want to touch on a few things. Stalled projects, as Bennett mentioned. Being that this is the Borough President's last year in office, we're going to be focused on closing out those underfunded projects, getting those over the finish line. Making sure that projects that we look at can be funded in this cycle. It wouldn't require repeat years because we want to make sure your project, again, gets underway and you're not, playing the long game, reaching out over a few years to get funded. I mentioned schools who have not historically received an award are more likely to receive an award in the upcoming year, but I don't want to discourage schools who've received prior awards to not apply, because in your project narrative, it'll be fantastic if you just kind of explain, what's happening at the school. Are you introducing robotics because the students have mastered, the basic STEM kits and, you're advancing, or building on that hydroponic lab? The more I know about the project, the better I can advocate for it to be funded, other than, the school received 3 prior awards or 2 prior awards. So keep in contact with me. And also, you can be asking council members for funding. Let's say the project, has a somewhat big price tag and you want to split the cost between the borough president and your local council member. Fantastic. But make sure you put that in there and, let me know how conversations are going so we can ensure your project is fully funded and doesn't stall when it, gets to SE, as Bennett mentioned. So we've had a preview of the application process, some eligible equipment, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to some of our vendors. And up first, we're going to have A+ STEM Labs. So Bill?
Unmute me. There we
go. Yeah, you're unmuted.
There we go. Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Bill Wabel from A+ STEM Labs. It's hard to talk to people when you can't see them. I probably know most of you, or at least a lot of you. We've been doing this for a long time. We started with Reso back in 2003, I believe it was, Brian, when we first did the first mobile science carts up in the Bronx. And we've got over 1,000, probably 1,500 labs spread out across the city over the years. I'm going to go quick in my PowerPoint because I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to just do a quick PowerPoint thing. Okay, we use Reso funds to build a fully synchronous blended remote learning environment for students in the classroom and at home. That's something that's new for this year. We've adapted our solutions to address the situations that the schools are going through right now with remote learning and blended learning and synchronous learning. All of our solutions have always been a technology-based teaching platform, as we all know, using technology in the class is hard, right? You got one adult, 25 to 30 kids or 35 kids, and the internet. What could go wrong? Usually the kids know more than the teachers. You have all this cool STEM stuff that we know if you don't expose the kids to this stuff, you're really not preparing them for the real world. So, and there's always limited time in the class to get things done. So you really have to be on your game. So we put together cost-effective turnkey projects, everything that you would have in a high-tech class without doing any construction. It rolls in and plugs into the wall and you're ready to go. We're trying to make teachers more effective and efficient with the technology so that everybody gets more out of it and maximizes the time that they have with the kids. Typically, our solutions were monitor, guide, and control. That was the basis of our solution. Monitor, the teacher can see what all the kids are doing. The middle of the screen, you see the A+ Mobile STEM Lab. You could think of it kind of as an intelligent laptop cart. Laptop carts are typically charging stations. Kids take the laptops out, they go on the internet. Teacher hopes they're going where they're supposed to go. In our scenario, they don't have to worry about where they go, they can see. The teacher can see what all the students are doing, they can segment them in groups. From a guide perspective, they can launch applications or websites. So if the teacher wants everyone on Google Classroom, one click of the mouse and everybody's on Google Classroom in seconds. They can put them on applications, they can communicate with the entire class electronically, whether they're at home or in the classroom, and we'll get into that in a second. They can individually chat. So if a student is shy about raising their hand, they don't want to ask a question because they think it's a dumb question, they can raise their hand electronically and type and chat back and forth with the teacher. And the teacher can take control of the devices and guide the student through whatever they're trying to get through, rather than, all right, move out of the way, let me get at your keyboard. The teacher can work together with the student with the keyboard. They can manage the student's internet access. Sometimes you're working in a class on hands-on science or coding or robotics or things like that. You don't really need the internet. The teacher, with one click of the mouse, turn off the internet for all the stations. They can limit that they can only go to certain websites, or they can say you can go to all websites except certain websites. So it gives the teacher full control at their desktop for what the kids do on the internet. What we've added is some more presentation capability. We always had a document camera on our lab, so that's one camera. We added 2 more camera systems, one on top of the monitor, which is what I'm looking at right now, that rolls around on the arm on the lab, so the teacher can move it around and present from there. What we've seen with blended learning and remote learning is teachers strapped to the front of their laptop. They're sitting in front of their laptop, they're looking at the camera, and they're talking and trying to teach. What we did is try to make it so that they could be more flexible and move around the room. We include, every one of our labs will include a wireless microphone like I'm using right now, and a camera on a tripod, a rolling tripod. It's a professional, you can't put cheap stuff in schools because it'll break. So we went and got high quality stuff with a pan, tilt, and zoom camera. So the teacher can now be flexible and move around the room. I'm just gonna change to that camera real quick to show you how that works. It basically has 4 presets on it. So the teacher can be walking around the room teaching, looking at the board, teaching whatever they want, or they can focus it. If they were doing a science experiment, they could focus in on the science experiment with one click of the button on the remote. Or they could zoom in on the 3D printers or the robots or the Lego kits or whatever you might want to have there. Or maybe when we do the STEM lab for hands-on science, they get this little card. And any one of these settings can be zoomed in, moved around, zoomed out. But basically, it gives the teacher the flexibility to teach from anywhere in the classroom and walk around. So they could teach synchronously to the students in the classroom and at home. I'm just going to show you real quick how that works. The heart of our system is the classroom management piece of it, where the teacher can see the thumbnails of what all the students are doing. This is the main screen that the teacher might see when they come in. Everybody's doing something different, right? I have it set up for 3 different science experiments just to show you how it works. It's probably never going to be that way. You'll probably be doing one. But the way the science works is you get a set of these. Oh, let me change my screen back so you're not looking at my back. Sorry about that. Okay. there's a set of these, typically 8 groups of kids. Most science experiments are done in groups, and they have 4 connections on them, and science probes get connected. Temperature, light, sound, pH, oxygen, all those things. There's over 700 experiments in all the science areas. Everything is aligned to the New York State scope and sequence, as well as the Amplify curriculum for the middle school and elementary school. And with all the standards denoted, we have all that up on our website. But one of the stations would hook up to this, and the other 3 or 4 kids in the group would have the same data that's collected by this device. So I set up 3 groups: heart rate experiment, speed and velocity experiment, and voltage drop experiment. So if I go to the heart rate experiment, I have a heart rate sensor right here that's connected. I put it on my finger. So remember I said 1 controls it. So right now I have 1 station controlling the heart rate sensor. Oh, one thing to note, sorry about that before I do that. These 4 stations up at the top, Bill home 14, 15, Ryan home 18, 19. These are actually, 2 of them are at my house. Up until yesterday, they were on my dining room table. They were evicted by my wife. They are now in the garage with all the rest of my stuff in the garage. That's where I'm relegated to. And these 2 are on Ryan's house. But notice the teacher can see what all of them are doing. In the group for heart rate, one of those stations is in my garage and the other 2 are here. So if I double click on number 4 that runs the experiment and I hit play, you'll see it start collecting the data. Notice that the kids at home are getting the same data that I'm getting in the classroom. How cool is that? Pretty cool, right? Think about that. Now, like I said, normally everybody would be doing the same experiment. So you might focus the camera in on one of the experiments. Like I have the speed and velocity experiment running over here. And if I hit play on station number 8, again, you'll see as I roll the car down the ramp, you'll see all of those stations change. Okay, so you saw that 8, 7, and 14 all changed when I rolled the car down the ramp. So it's a way to include the kids in the class at the same time. Now, remember I said about Google Classroom or anything else. The teacher has the ability to, number 1, clear everyone's desktop. So with 1 click of the mouse, I can clear all desktops. Ask any teacher how long it takes them to get to this point, right? We've been in classrooms for a long time. It takes them a long time to get to everybody at the same place. If I wanted to go to Google Classroom, these are the quick launches that we have in there, but the teacher can add whatever they want. We set up a A+STEM Lab Google Classroom. You double click on it. Within seconds, everyone's in the Google Classroom. I got to tell you, teachers love this. Even before COVID, when it was just in the classroom, teachers love this aspect. It helps them, it saves them a lot of time of getting everybody focused on what they want them focused on. Now, in today's world, we've got the COVID thing. So I created a home group. And from the main screen, to add somebody to a group, I could add station 2 to the group by just going here and add to group, put them in the home group. But I have a home group set up here. And I want to send this home group to this Google chat. To this Zoom call. I don't know if this will work in your Zoom call. I do this normally in my own Zoom call, and the teacher would do it in their Zoom call, but it probably will, as long as they're enabled. You did disable the waiting room?
Not just yet, no.
Just for a second? Yeah, watch. This will send them all to the Zoom call. And you may see them come up waiting to come in. If you could let them in. Now, again, all of these stations are at my house. All right, everybody else is still doing their Google Classroom. I guess they're not coming in, huh? All right. I guess it's not going to work when I'm not controlling the Zoom call. But basically, they would have the same screen that you had. So if I was to share a different screen, say with the document camera on it. Let me change my, new share. There you go. Sorry. All right, so I have a document camera on here. Right now, everybody, including the kids at home, are going to have this document camera, but in Zoom or Teams or Google Meets, They'll still be hearing me and seeing me, my little face, just like you are, but they'll now see this document camera view, right? And if I change the screen, I might change back to this camera, right? Now I can walk over here, talk to the kids in the class at the same time that the kids at home are seeing what I'm doing. So the kids at home will have this screen, and I can draw, or I can, do whatever I want to do, and teach the kids that are in the class, talk to the kids that are in the class, but at the same time, I'm talking to the kids that are at home. Very powerful. I will tell you, everyone we show this to wants it. And by the way, they want it soon. I don't know. Everybody I talk to says, wow, I could use this today. I said, yeah, the funding's still on hold for all of that. But that's where they are. One more different share. I'm going to just go back to the PowerPoint for a second. I know I only had 10 minutes, so I'm trying not to be too fast. Oh, just real quick, another thing that you can do with this is when the teacher wants everyone's attention in the classroom, they can just as easily blank everyone's screen. Are you guys all seeing this screen, or you're still seeing the document camera? Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, say I want everyone's attention in the class, even the kids at home, blank all. Everybody's keyboards are off. Their heads pop up like little gophers. Hey, even at home, they're turned off. Now, if I'm on a Zoom call with them, they can still hear me, but they can't do anything until I let them. One more click and I unblank them. The web access, I could say unrestricted. That means anywhere they're allowed to go. Now, in this scenario, because of the way we've set it up, they'll still be bound by the DOE's filtering system. Even though they're at home, they won't be able to go to websites they're not supposed to go to. They'll only be able to go where the DOE tells them they can go. Approved only, we go over here and set which sites they're allowed to go to and click approved only, and that's the only place they'll be able to go. I can lock individuals. If Station 18 was doing something I didn't want them to do, I can lock just them, and everybody else is still working. So it gives you, the teacher, a lot of power to manage the time in the classroom with the technology. Just one more, and then I'll be done. If I go back to this, these are some of the solutions that we put together. The basis of our lab is our same intelligent laptop cart STEM lab. We bundle it or put it together with coding for robots, Raspberry Pi, 3D design and 3D printing, coding with drones. We have a college readiness. We have a literacy program, virtual reality. We partner with ZSpace, and we build a laptop cart like this with the same controls with the ZSpace devices. If anybody knows what ZSpace is, it's virtual reality where the kids can pull 3D images out of the screen. It's really cool. And our standard hands-on science applications. Did I make my time? Was I good?
You're perfect, man. Perfect.
Usually they say they're pulling the hook out on me. Somebody's got the hook.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
If anybody has any questions, I put my contact info in the chat. So if anyone wants to contact me, you certainly can. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, of course, as I mentioned, technology is important to the borough president, but so is healthy eating. We're going to hear from Sunworks, who does a lot of work around hydroponics. And I would like to introduce Megan to the group.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here. We are so thrilled with the long partnership we've had with Borough President Adams and his wonderful office, and with the SCA. And so thank you for inviting us. I'm going to share my screen because it is much more interesting than anything I can just tell you. So I'm with New York Sunworks. We are a nonprofit organization. We've been around for 10 years working with schools. We actually built the first rooftop greenhouse on a New York City public school 10 years ago at PS 333, and it is still going strong. But we build hydroponic labs, hydroponics, which is growing food using water and nutrients rather than soil. to teach science and sustainability in a very hands-on way, right? So that students are growing food right in the classroom and learning about science. We currently are partnering with about 130 schools in the 5 boroughs of New York and a few in New Jersey. And we're excited to partner with more of you. So as I said, the students are using 21st century technology to grow food right in the classroom while engaging in these critical science sustainability topics, really doing a deep dive into climate change and, learning how they affect the world around them and how they are affected by the world around them. And they do also learn about healthy food and healthy nutrition. This was on the right was at PS 84 in Williamsburg. That was with a PBS cooking show that they filmed with students in the classroom using the greens that they'd grown to do a wonderful cooking show. But how we at New York Sunworks partners with schools comes in 3 different phases: the build, teach, and connect. And we are a long-term partnership. We don't just build a lab and then run away and leave you to figure it out. We, have been working with schools for 10 years, and we want to make our program as sustainable for you, the school, as possible. So the first phase is the build phase, where we would come working with the SCA and design a space for you, helping you figure out what equipment would work in your space and to fit your educational needs. We do work with a wide variety of schools, K through 12. We work with District 75 schools. We work with specialized high schools. We work with transfer schools. So we can design the lab based on your student population's needs. And our labs are typically built within 1 year of funding allocation. So they are fast-tracked. So we would help you figure out which of these beautiful systems would work for you in your classroom. And then our team would come in once your classroom is renovated by the general contractor with the SCA. Our team would come in and actually build the equipment and begin technical training. They would train your staff on how the systems work. And then they would come back and work with your team every week, at least for the first year, to make sure that your team knows how to run the systems and helps with the entire program. And we can continue this partnership for as many years as you need. We can come back and maintain the systems, retrain, do anything that works to help your lab run in your schools. Here are some typical beautiful labs that we have built in conjunction with the School Construction Authority. So once the lab is built and the technical training has happened, the teach part really comes in. We have a full K through 12 curriculum. The program is designed to be integrated right into an existing science program. Some schools do use it after school as an extra, but it really is meant to be integrated right into your science programming. So in that, all of our curriculum is connected to the science standards, and we provide comprehensive teacher training, one-on-one training with our curriculum specialist, as well as group professional learning opportunities throughout the year. All of our curriculum lives on an online learning platform. There's some of our students engaged with their labs. But the first part is we provide farming foundations for all of the students so that they can get the basics of what is hydroponic farming, what is urban farming, and how do you do it. So they all learn the basics of hydroponic farming, and we have that broken up for K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. And so they learn, to take the plants from the seed to harvest, And in the process, they learn about biology, ecology, interacting with the environment, and how to actually care for and run the hydroponic systems. In K through 8, all of our curriculum is fully aligned with the next generation science standards, with New York City Scope and Sequence, and with Amplify. So everything on this is all mapped out very clearly on our online learning platform, which you would be given access to as soon as you find out you have been awarded a grant. And so we have 2 pathways. We have the GHC Connect lessons that augment the science units of study. And then we have sustainability extensions, which are deeper dives into sustainability topics. So you can take the curriculum, as far as your students are interested in going. For 9 through 12, we also have modules as well as subject-specific labs. So we have labs for living environment in chemistry that will fulfill all of the hands-on lab requirements for those courses for the regents. We also have modules that can be used to create electives for a full year hydroponics and aquaponics course. And our next phase, which we're really, really excited about, is we're creating an urban farming certification program so that students, we're partnering with industry leaders here around the city who are, there's a lot of new urban farms that have grown, including Gotham Greens, which is one of our partners, to figure out what they need to see, what students should know in order to get jobs in this burgeoning industry. And we're also starting partnerships with some SUNY schools so that to help build a pipeline for students to go into urban agriculture as a field after high school. So we do also have a youth conference every year where students come together and present their research TED Talk style, which is really exciting for kids to be able to connect. As you can imagine, this year has been a little different. Many of our students weren't able to visit the labs. So back in March, we immediately shifted much of our curriculum to remote learning, creating Google-facing slides and all of the supports so that teachers can continue to work with the students. Even though they're not physically in the lab, we also created these home hydroponic kits so that students can grow plants at home, guided by their teacher, and do a full 12 weeks of hands-on lessons. And this has just been a really great for our students to have something green to grow during this dark time. And then they get to even eat the food that they grow and share it with their family, even though they're little plants. It's still very exciting, as well as do hands-on science. And we've created fantastic videos with our support team, who've been doing the running the labs themselves at home and sharing their labs through videos. So we've been able to shift to remote learning as well. And the final piece of our program, the build, teach, after the build and teach part, is the connect, because this is the best part, most exciting part. I know Borough President Adams loves this part. It's sharing the harvest. So you are growing a lot of food in your hydroponic classroom. So we send that food home with recipes in reusable bags that they bring back so that they can share their labor and the fruits of their labor with their families and expose themselves and to their families to different foods that they might not have had experience with before. So we're really excited about this. And also during COVID, when we have shifted a number of our labs to growing foods, and students can't always visit right now, growing food for their school communities or for local community partners, which has been really great. So we're able to continue growing food, especially at this time when there's so much food insecurity in our city. The impact of our program is really exciting. Both from the student side and from the teacher side. It's fantastic to see the students engaged in hands-on learning, really getting to care for their plants. Some schools report that kids have higher attendance on days when they're visiting the labs because they're so excited to see, even in high school, so excited to see how their plants are growing. And how do you get this lab? So typically, we can help schools apply for the grant. Typically, we're told to have them ask for $175,000 because that would cover not only the hydroponic equipment, but the bulk of that would cover a room renovation, adding a sink if that's necessary, adding outlets as necessary, replacing floors, paint, adding cabinets, and so forth, and also technology such as a smartboard or laptop cart, as well as our program. And if you're interested, we are happy to work with you to submit a capital funding application or talk to you more about our program. Here's my contact information. I'm sorry, normally I would have a sign-up sheet at the presentation. Since I can't have that, you'll have to reach out to me directly. So please do so. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Megan. That was amazing. And our last vendor presenter is going to be from Tech. Chris, are you with us and ready to show us what your organization provides?
Yes, of course. I do want to say hello to everybody. I hope everybody is healthy and well at the moment. I know this has definitely been a trying year for all of us. So one thing that I do want to discuss pretty quickly, specifically about tech, we're hoping everybody does get back into the classroom soon. And once that does happen, what we would like to do is be able to actually go over what we can provide for your, from your front end displays to some smart boards and different things that we do offer. When you do look at, having this equipment in your classroom, one thing that you will notice a lot of times, if you have some of the older equipment, specifically with projector and board setups, moving forward into some of the newer equipment, you will be able to save you guys yourself some money going forward. That will be specifically when it comes down to maintenance. I do know earlier in the presentation, you said that everything does need to run anywhere from 3 years and more. When you look at the second bullet point on this sheet, one thing that you'll see is it says warranty. Our equipment is warranted to start for 5 years. The life expectancy of the equipment is anywhere from 10 to 15 years, depending on use. So when you look at it from that standpoint, you have an opportunity to have something in the classroom that will stand the test of time. Another good thing that you'll find with our equipment is it's future-proof. So what that means to you is you have the opportunity to have something there that you can always upgrade as time goes on. And I don't mean upgrading by having to buy a brand new board. I mean upgrading by being able to add new pieces of equipment to it, specifically onboard computers. So currently we have, as you can see here, Chrome access. We have Zoom connectivity when it comes down to our boards. We have worked pretty closely with Zoom specifically, so that in today's classroom climate, you have the opportunity to be able to bring your kids into the board and not have to be in the classroom. Unfortunately, my office is closed today, so I don't have access to a board to be able to go over some of those features with you. However, if you would like to be able to see this, we can do a presentation. I'll put all my information in at the end of this. You can reach out to me directly and I will be able to set up a virtual meeting with you and go over all of the features and benefits of every single thing that we have to offer. And I'm not able to change, there it is. So we do have a couple of different options when it comes down to boards. Our sizes are going to go anywhere from 55 up to an 86-inch board, depending on the size of the classroom. Obviously is going to determine what you would need to put in there. The standard pretty much is about a 65-inch board. That's what you would see in most classrooms. In some science labs, you'll go from anywhere from a 75 to an 86-inch board, depending on the layout and the size of that particular room. One thing that we've done with our boards is now you have the opportunity, specifically if you have a Chromebook, if you have an iPad, or any other web-enabled device, you have access to be able to log into our boards and share your information, as well as be able to interact on that device if it's touchscreen and have it show up on the board in real time. So the benefit there is if you do have students that are remote learning, you have the opportunity to have them in the classroom, let it be via webcam, and they can feel as if they're part of that actual class in live format. The benefits there is you have more student engagement. They feel more comfortable being able to participate in the classroom. A lot of times as well, when it comes down to the way students participate in class, you may have kids that are going to be a little bit shyer in working, in front of their peers, may not be willing to answer some questions in front of everyone. What we've done with a lot of our equipment, giving those students the opportunity to answer questions and participate through devices. This is a totally different time when it comes down to the way kids learn. And what I mean by that is when we were in school, you didn't have access to these devices. You didn't have access to a laptop or an iPad in the classroom to be able to present or answer anything. You actually had to go up in front of the classroom, raise your hand, and answer those questions in front of everybody. Now we're giving everybody an opportunity to operate in their comfort level. When it comes down to the differences between these boards, again, you're going to be able to have, if you look at the 6000 series, that's going to be our main board. You have pen differentiation there. So depending on which one you pick up, you have the opportunity to see what student is writing. So if a student picks up the red pen, they can write in red. If the student picks up a black pen, they can write in black, but this will happen at the same time. So you will have the opportunity to have the differentiation. So if you're doing odds and evens, you could see what student is writing what. That is going to be a feature that you won't find in our base model, which is going to be on our MX side. So again, when it comes down to it, for every school's budget, we have something that is going to fulfill and be able to work within the confines of what they can afford. One of the most important things that you will find when it comes down to any board or any technology, let it be STEM, let it be classroom technology such as this, is professional development. Tech is known for professional development. That's kind of where we started. And we feel that being able to provide our customers with this training is hugely important. Now, when it comes down to it, every single board that you receive, we do give you instructions on how to work with the board. You'll have 10 hours of CTLE approved professional development included with your purchase. This way, it does take a lot of pressure off of your tech directors and those, turnkey teachers who are going to be having to go out and work with the teachers who've never worked with this technology. We try to take that off of you and make sure that they're comfortable utilizing this particular piece of equipment. Looking at it, you're going to be able to, again, this is another piece that comes with it. Again, this is going to be covered in our professional development to make sure that people are comfortable utilizing this. This is going to be something that, as you can see, would work perfectly in a math class. We have additional add-ons that you could bring into your classrooms, depending on what what subject you're going to be teaching. Going forward, I can send out data sheets to everybody that is here. So if you have any specific questions on any particular board, you'll have all of the answers sent over to you. Now, this is going to be something that we've just come out with. As I said, you have an opportunity to see your boards being able to be upgraded. This is our Chrome OS experience. Now, this also gives your board, again, you'll have 10 touch points. So you have multiple students being able to go up to the board. In this climate, I know that's going to be a little difficult. It's not going to happen right now. But again, going forward, we hope that that's something that we're going to be able to overcome and get kids back to learning in a classroom, getting up and interacting with technology, and hopefully being able to, get back to some sense of normalcy. When you do look at this piece of equipment, this is something, as I mentioned, it is going to stand in your classroom for 10 to 15 years. So we want to make sure that you do have an opportunity to move forward with it, just like any other piece of technology. And what I'll do, I'm pretty much short and sweet. I'm going to put all my information, all my contact in the chat again. So if you have any questions and would like to reach out, please feel free, let us know. Our turn time pretty much when it does come down to Reso is anywhere between 6 weeks. That's just the process. But we tend to store all of this equipment in-house. So once we receive the purchase order, it's not as if we have to go out and then order all of the equipment. We have it, everything is done out of one roof. installation, service, sales, site survey, everything. So it's a very streamlined process for you. But what I would like to say to everybody is have a very happy holiday, stay safe, and enjoy your new year. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for that concise presentation, Chris. It was fantastic. I don't know about everyone else, but anytime I see these presentations, I wish I were back in elementary school, junior high school again, because there's just so much cool stuff out there for our kids to engage with. I did see a lot of questions as to if the information will be shared, and yes, all of the presenters will share their slides with me or any public-facing documents, Sunwork Tech, A+ STEM Labs, SCA. I will email those presentations out. And again, this info session will be posted on the Borough President's digital platforms. I will now like to turn the meeting over to my colleague, Mike Mutal, who's been keeping an eye on the chat, so we can segue into the question and answer portion of the info session. Mike?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Candace. And again, just to reiterate what Candace said, I'm going to ask if all the moderators can put their contact info in the chat, because that seemed to be one of the biggest questions. And then a lot of the questions were answered in the chat, but I think it's worth going through them anyway for anybody that didn't follow the chat. Question 1 is, I am under the impression that projects funded last year are on hold. Do we have an idea when these funds will be made available?
Hi, unfortunately we don't. And if I was to say January, I'd be guessing. So we're not going to do any of that. We're just going to say that we're advocating for the release of funds, and we're joined by a whole slew of council members and all the borough presidents in that regard.
Thank you, Bennett. Question 2, my principal received an approval letter this past August. She's not heard anything about our next steps. What should we do?
I've been reaching out to folks privately, and so if you've given me your email address, we will follow up with you either tomorrow or Monday about the status of those awards.
Thank you. Question 3 is, so Chromebooks, Chromebook carts, and iPads are now an allowable project. Does this meet the 5-year rule?
Yes, these are eligible. Chromebooks and iPads. Printers are also eligible.
3D printers or regular printers?
3D printers are eligible through various STEM vendors that we've heard from today, and that's not me.
No, that's me. I'm sorry.
It's okay. And I think the laser jet printers, the ones that you would see in classrooms or offices, those are now eligible.
Thank you.
And for clarification, Bennett, before the next question, Mike, the useful life, is it 3 years or is it 5 years?
I think it's 3 years. I think
Right.
that
It
needs
was
to be
recently
updated.
changed.
And I also just want to put out there again, visit please FAMIS or Shop DOE. Those sites have a menu of eligible technology that you'll be able to choose from the carts to the laptops to the tablets to the printers. These are all the eligible items that you'll find on those websites, FAMIS and Shop DOE. Tabulate the total cost that you're looking for, add a 10% integrator fee. So let's say you have $100,000 in technology, 10% to that would be 10,000. Add that to the total, and that would be your request to the council member or borough president.
Thank you. On that note, I'm going to skip around a little bit because you mentioned funding. One of the questions is, so all these projects must be $50,000 or above, but is there any ceiling, like a max price?
There's no maximum. The schools should be asking, for what they want and what they need based on their priorities, but there's no ceiling. We know that the borough president has supported green roofs at upwards of $6-7 million. We also know that, you supported technology packages for 50. Yeah.
Thank you.
But on
when
that,
applying, sorry, Candace.
sorry, just as I mentioned really quickly, this is the Borough President's last year. So we're going to be closing out those underfunded projects. Not to say a 7 million green roof wouldn't get funded, but that's one of those things in just strategic planning for your capital project. The administration, where they are in their tenure, we're looking to fund projects that we can fund outright. There's no hard fast rule as to what that dollar amount is. Just really depends on that narrative and where it falls on the Borough President's priority list. So again, keep me informed as to where your project is. If it's a high, low dollar amount, the more I know, the better I can advocate for funding.
That makes sense, Candace. Question 6. When applying for the grants, do we ask for the full amount from both Borough President Adams and the council members, or do we make a decision to divide the amounts between the two offices?
It's a strategic question. Depending on, the old saying, if you don't ask, you shall not receive. I'm of the mind that you should be asking for all to each of those people, each of those elected officials, but also communicating the request to both of them in so much as to say, I'm requesting this from this council member and this from the borough president. That way, the elected offices can communicate together and see if there's a happy medium.
To piggyback on that, council members receive about $5 million in capital every cycle. The borough president receives 5% of the capital budget, and that varies. It can be anywhere from 30 million to 80 million on a given fiscal year. So as Bennett mentioned, ask for the bulk from both, but strategically you have to look at who's going to have the capacity to fund at what amount. Strategic, but these are the conversations we should be having, and your narrative definitely should support that. I, of course, on the back end, when I see that you are asking council, I do look to see which district you fall in and work with those council offices as well to make sure, again, that your project is fully funded, because we don't want your $500,000 project, if you split it between the two offices, it's not fully funded. Everyone's goal is to make sure the schools have a fully funded project to get that moving.
All right, question 7. What should we do if we were awarded a Reso A grant back in 2017 and the project never materialized?
I'll ask that you'll email myself, Bianca, and Brian. We could follow up with you individually.
And there was a bunch of questions in that regard, Bennett, for past projects, or if I'm a new principal, how do I see what my school did in the past? And they should email you?
Email, absolutely.
Thank you. I have a couple questions for Bill. Question 1 for Bill is, does the cart come equipped with free Wi-Fi for students in challenging situations because they are a tier 1 school? Is Bill muted?
Bill appears to be unmuted, and I will say, Ryan, if you're on, you can take a stab at the question as well.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Typically, they don't come with Wi-Fi for devices. Could we look at including it? Yes, we could, but they don't typically. Hopefully that answers the question.
I think it does. And then I have 2 more questions for you, Bill. Is there a microscope piece for the document camera?
The labs for science come with a freestanding microscope, so you don't need the microscope piece for the document camera. And one other quick thing that I didn't mention before that I thought about after, the devices that are on our labs, the laptops, are all DOE laptops. They can be laptops, Chromebooks, MacBooks, iPads, tablets, anything. There's a little less functionality with the iPads from a control perspective, but you can still see everything that they're doing. So they can be configured with any of those.
And Bill, I think that answers your next question because it's, do students need the specific computers from A+, or can they log in with any computer?
The computers that come with the lab are configured for this purpose. If they wanted to use, that's another thing I didn't mention. This is what happens when I rush. We also have a mobile teacher's station that's configured without the devices, and we can match it to existing laptop cards. So we would come into the school and make your existing laptops work with this solution.
Great, thank you, Bill. And then the last question I have is for Megan. Are the lessons in your curriculum available to schools other than those that have Sunworks labs?
Hi, our curriculum does require hydroponic equipment. So if you have the hydroponic equipment already through a different source, please reach out and we can discuss. But the home kits that I showed that we're using now during remote learning, that is a separate curriculum, a standalone curriculum, and you don't need a lab. So even if those are available now, even if you don't have a lab and you're interested in having some hands-on learning, please reach out to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Megan. And Candace, that's about it for the questions that I was able to pull out from the chat so far.
Thank you so much, Mike. And I think, SCA did a fantastic job at responding to questions as they popped up. Thank you. The team at SCA is always so responsive. Thank you so much for working with us. Flood of questions constantly to Bennett and the team. I think we're at the end of our capital info sessions for schools. On behalf of Borough President Eric Adams, I'd like to thank everyone for joining on this snow day. I will be sharing all of the PowerPoints. This will be online, and I can be reached to have a follow-up meeting to discuss your specific school and your specific capital project. So stay warm, healthy, and encourage as we make our way out of COVID. Happy New Year, and I hope to speak with you all in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace.
Happy New Year, everyone. Happy holiday.